We sent him out about 12 years ago is what I'm told now. It's just, time just disappears. It's just hard to believe. But he helped us plant the church. He did the music for us for about the first 3 years. And then he just kind of sensed a calling to go. And then so we prayed over him, sent him out. And so he went over to Romania in 2013. But basically, Jeff and Val Sutton, who started the ministry up in Tayatan, Great Commandments Ministries, they were doing some, I wouldn't call it smuggling Bibles across certain lines, but when communism fell, if I can use that term, back in the early 90s, the Suttons started just kind of transporting goods into basically Eastern Europe, mostly Romania. And as they were doing that, they just kind of developed a love for the folks and the people, and then they moved here, started Great Commandments Ministries in 2004, I believe, and so just kind of had a heart to do missions there, and so we got involved with them. I've been up there teaching since probably 2005, and so Paul sends a message, like in December, hey, would you be interested in coming over and teaching? And I'm like, maybe. And as of now, my new response would be, don't ask me ever again. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but said, hey, we'll just see what happens. We'll go for it. We'll see if the funds are there and the timing's all there. And, Romania is an interesting place because, they were definitely communism pretty heavy for a number of years, and you'll see by some of the pictures, the buildings are very, they considered space, I guess, like really well, and like, we're just going to conserve space, and so all the buildings kind of look the same, and so everybody kind of lives the same, they have the same apartment, and they're kind of square, and they'll kind of like throw some designs on it a little bit as they go, and so you see that when you're over there, but then there's been, that was back in the early 90s, it fell, and so they've had about 30 plus years. It's hard to believe the 90s were 30 years ago, but anyways, 30 some years. And so you see like this Western influence coming into Romania coupled with the old communist mindset of these buildings that are still there. So it's this interesting kind of mix of East and West kind of merging together. The dollar does go a long ways there. And so their money comes in leis, L-E-I is how they spell it. And so $1 is 4.37 leis, and so you give them $100 and they give you like 437 leis, and I'm like, wow, this is a nice what's the word? It's not translation. Say it again. Exchange. Yeah, this is a great exchange rate. And so like we would go buy in euro, it would be like 28 lei. Like break that down. It's like $6. Like, hey, I can do this. And so that's one of the reasons there's a lot of people that kind of come to these international schools in Romania, because the funds or the cost of tuition stuff is down quite a bit. And so we've put together this slideshow. Now, you must know what has happened is we did pious pictures and put them on. And then she's like, oh, you probably have some pictures. And so then I put my pictures on. And so we did our best to kind of try and merge the two together. But you'll probably be able to tell which pictures belong to Pius specifically. And it will mostly have to do with food and donkeys. Okay. And so I got this thing. It's supposed to move every 10 seconds. So we're going to see what happens. And so I'm going to hit play on this thing. And let's see. So this is us on the airplane. Super exciting. I figured we probably should get at least one picture on the plane. This is us on a tram somewhere. I don't know, we're taking buses and trains and trams and all kinds of stuff. I just want to see if this thing moves. Well, I think it's every 8 seconds. Oh, that might be too fast. All right, hang on. I got these little fancy things up here. I don't want to do it. I want this thing to do it for me. I want to just kind of hit like this nice flow, transitions. Oh no, it says every 10 seconds, right there. Yeah, I might just have to do it myself. Yeah, let's see. Hey, what was I just on? Slideshow? What was I on? Play from current slide. I like to take pictures like without you being ready. That's kind of my thing, just these action shots. And so, Now see, I put pause and it's still playing. I might just be hitting my down arrows for a while. There you go. Okay, so, this is what we're going to do. I know. Okay, so, well, I thought I did. No. There should be a way that I can hit these arrows to go through this, right? Oh, maybe spacebar? Okay. Turn the time off. Use timings. Okay. Let's see. Let's try this. Spacebar doesn't work. Arrows don't work. Okay. I can do this. I can switch back and forth every time. That's not going to work. Always use subtitles. I don't want that. Play from current slide. I want to move it through each one. Well, it did it once. Well, it might be on timing. Well, I'll speak fast and maybe pause it once in a while. It's got this little pause button right here that I should be able to hit. This is just us in the airport. You know, we went from Seattle to Frankfurt, then to Vienna, and then to Yas. And so this is just us kind of transitioning in Frankfurt. This is hanging out in the airport in Seattle. And so we had a few little games we'd play as we were sitting and waiting. But the one that's coming up, I had this plan right here. I was going to take a picture at noon every day. And that made it for one day. And that was it. That was my noon picture. And I was like, okay, I didn't do that so well. And so this just kind of us moving through airports. It was 17 hours of travel. It's a 10-hour time change. And so if you want to go to Eastern Europe, that's what you're going to deal with. This is flying into Vienna. So Frankfurt, Vienna is about an hour and a half. And then back into Yash was about another hour and a half. And for some reason, when we land in the airport, we get to see Paul. He's got our luggage, and then he decides he needs money for some reason, or like a parking ticket or something. And so he's got like a parking pass. But this is our buddy, Paul. He got the house of Dave and Aaron when they went there. They planted the church, and this picture is on here specifically for one reason. Let's see if this is going to pause. Oh, it might. So when we land, and it's now about 3:30 the next day. Oh, no, it's not going to stop, is it? That's really interesting. Just stop. She's really wonderful. She's really sweet. And when we get there, one of the first things that she does is she climbs up in our lap, and then she sneezes on me. And then her sister comes in and starts coughing. And so we're like, hey, we need to kind of let you guys know how this works. I wish this thing would just stop. Who's like a PowerPoint expert in here? Isn't that Kyle? Why won't it pause, Kyle? There you go. And so I think she's probably, is she 4, maybe going on 5? Yeah, she'll be 5 in June or something. And so, you know, we haven't even unpacked our stuff. They're excited that, you know, there's Americans there. And so she just kind of jumps on the lap, and then she's kind of got like this snot coming out of her nose. And then her sister comes up and starts just coughing like this deep, I'm like, oh no, this is how you cough. You stick your nose in your elbow and you like turn your head away. And so I knew from there I was toast. And so that was come Thursday. And so as Kyle plays with this, you know, the plan was we did the Good Friday, and then we did the Sunday thing, and I was going to teach during the week. And so we landed Thursday. We got there Thursday afternoon, and then about Saturday, I started just kind of coming down with something. Oh, look, you got the down arrows going on now. Can you pause it up there? Right here?
Well, this is the main time, so this is just tracking how long you're taking.
Okay.
I'm waiting to see if I did accomplish turning off the stuff. Nope. But you have control of it.
Okay. Can you pause that up there? Let's see. We'll see if it doesn't move.
You have
Count to
so many
10.
things turned on the PowerPoint, or you're golden.
Okay.
Bam.
So this is the little booger. Look at Kyle. This is the little booger that got me sick. And there's about 50 of these pictures in here because she loves technology. So she got a hold of my phone, And you guys might know you don't need passwords for phones, so you can just kind of like slide it, and then the camera comes on, and then kids can just start taking a whole bunch of pictures. And so I've got all these different pictures. Some are in X-ray, and some are black and white, and I'm like, where'd these come from? Well, Sophia's sister, Abigail, got a hold of my phone, and she just had a blast with it. And so Paul's like, yeah, they actually have been sick for a few days, and we don't know if they're going to make it to camp because they haven't been feeling well. And I'm like, dude, I don't travel well as it is, and I feel great right now, but 2 days later, I was just wiped out, and I've just been that way for about until yesterday. It's been just great. But so there she is with some of her little selfies that she's done, and she's just got wild hair, as you can tell. But she loves princesses, and she just has like all these little things that she wants to show you about a princess and all of that. And so here she is outside, just kind of hanging out. And so the first day that we were there, we would wake up about 3 in the morning. So if you guys have done international travel, your body's it's just all over the place. And so we would go down. The first day we went down, and the thing to do basically when you're in Yash is to go to the central square, which is where this guy hangs out, and all these things above him are lights, and there's just a big fountain there. There's just a whole bunch of, pavers and benches to sit in, and pigeons everywhere, and you kind of go to this, I forget the term of it. Paul speaks some Romanian, but folks there actually speak pretty good English, and so we would go through, and folks would just kind of keep up with us, and so you go to this, I don't want to call it, he would call it Unidad. I don't know what that would mean. It's not a university. It was just kind of the central location. But as you go from there, you get on this road here, and it's about a mile walk, and this is the thing to do in Romania, in Yash, and you just walk all the way down here, and they got little shops on each side, and then you get to the end, and you get to the palace. And so the first day we were there, we got to just kind of go out on the town, and so we just went for a walk down this little area, and they have all these churches, a lot of these Orthodox churches. 93% of Romania is Romanian Orthodox. And so everybody's got kind of their crosses and all of their cars, and there's all these kind of Orthodox churches, very old, probably 500-600 years old. And we were there for Easter break. So it wasn't for spring break, it wasn't for a vacation. They didn't take a vacation. They're just like, hey, it's Easter. It's coming up on Sunday, and so pretty much everything shuts down, and then the whole next week everybody's off of work. And so the universities are closed, and they just take Easter like really seriously. And so as you can see, we just kind of decided to just go for this walk. This is the palace that's down there, and this is kind of like the main feature of the city. And then behind it is actually, this is probably one of the best pictures of it, if I could pause it. It says it's paused, but it's lying to me. But that's the front of it. You can't really tour the place. You can kind of go in and look like in the front part of it. But that costs money, and we weren't all that excited to do all of it, to walk in and see a couple of rooms. And so we just kind of walked around the outside. But this place, it's just enormous. And so this is kind of one of the main draws of Yash. And so back here, when you hop on this road, as you can see at the very, very end is the palace. And it's about a mile-long walk, and a lot of these churches along the way. The one that Paul really wants us, that I went to last time, this is kind of the main one. It's got the bones of the dead saints in it that you can go in, you pay your money, and then they pray over you, and you get to pray over this guy, and then, pray for prosperity. And so this is kind of like the main draw. If you are living in Romania or living in Eastern Europe and you want to go to Yash, this is a church that you would go and see. And so it's got big gardens all the way around. You buy your candles, light them, and you put them in these little areas, and you can kind of pray over all your dead relatives. And so it's got a lot of just heavy Orthodox influence in Romania. And so this is a picture of the palace again. Here's one. This is still on the front side of it, and you got the guy out front that is the one that kind of settled and conquered Romania, if you would, and got separation from certain other groups. And so that's the back side of it. And so we're standing basically in a mall. And so it's kind of this interesting, modern American mall with all of the features to it. And then looking out, you see this, 600-year-old palace. This is the school. Listen, slideshow. This is the school, the medical school, which is what started everything. And so basically, folks from around the world, and I mean, we'll run into folks from Indonesia and Morocco and from India. We actually, you'll see some slides in a little bit. They got us in groups of about 8 people. And the group that I was in, everybody was from a different country. And so we had somebody from Morocco, we had a girl from India, we had somebody from the Caribbean, and I think there were like 7 different nations represented, and they've all come to go to the university. And it's a medical university, and it's a 6-year program. And so you come there, and the cost is extremely cheap compared to other parts of Europe. And so they had a sunrise service on Sunday morning. I'm going to be out of order here. I apologize. But so we went out at, I don't know what, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, which wasn't a big deal to us because we're up at 3 in the morning as it is right now, right? So we're just kind of waiting around for Paul. But get there, we just got to watch the sunrise. And then as we did that, some folks showed up, and Paul had these handouts, and so we just kind of sung some songs and had a sunrise service and just worshiped the Lord, and it was really kind of a sweet time. It's the only time that I wore my jacket, and so I'm glad I took it, I guess. Just kind of, I don't like taking clothes that I don't wear, because then like I got to haul this thing around all over the world, and I don't even need it. But it was a pretty full day on Sunday because we did the sunrise service in the morning, and then right afterwards he had this brunch, and there was probably 30 of these students that come over, and they just prepared this big, huge meal, and just kind of fill up Paul's house. And that's kind of where we started to get to know some of these people. This is kind of the dining room area. Off to the right would be our bedroom, and then up on this landing is kind of this area, which is the living area. I find it interesting they have doors to everything, so they have doors to their kitchen and doors to the living room, and then of course doors to the bedroom, and then doors to the pantries and all of these kind of different things. But it was interesting having a door to the kitchen. So I guess you can kind of just like try to shut the door and maybe keep the light out or something as people are trying to sleep. But so we did the sunrise service at 6, and then they came over for lunch until about 1. And then what they do is they do church in the evenings. And so they're actually they're 10 hours ahead of us, so that would make it, about 9 o'clock at night. So they're probably just finishing up church over there. And so they're doing church about the same time we're doing church, even though they're 10 hours ahead of us, because they start about 5, and they set up tables and kind of have like what we would call a potluck meal. And so then they eat. They break everything down, set chairs out, do a church service, and then they break the table back out, set it up again, and bring the food that they had at 5 back out at 8 o'clock, so folks that got there late can eat if they need to, or you can eat a second time. And so church is basically from like 5 to 9 on Sundays. And I say all that to let you know that this is now Friday. So if you're like, you're not going in chronological order, I know, I apologize already. But the Friday evening service, it was a Good Friday, which I know seems like a long time ago, but the Good Friday service was really nice because Paul would have people read, and so he handed out verses to probably 20, 25 of us, and so each person would kind of come up and read a section of the story, and then he had candles burning, and then he would kind of blow a candle out. I think there's like 5 or 6 candles, just kind of blowing the candles out, leading up to the crucifixion. And so this is a time you can see Paul's kind of off to the right doing the music. How's the slide? Oh yeah, it's pretty good. And then you got the 3 ladies up front reading, and then when Pi got her turn, she's up there, she would read a section, right? Then the other people would kind of read a section. And so it was just kind of a really nice Friday evening, Good Friday service. And then we did Sunday, which was, the fellowship, the meal. Then we did church in the evening, and Paul shared. And then the next day we got up and we hopped on this bus. Now, I have come to appreciate the interstate system of America now, even more than I did before, because apparently all the roads are 2 lanes. And so we're on this, it's like taking a commuter bus like you take from here to Seattle, and this guy's driving, oh my goodness gracious. This guy was herky-jerky. He would speed up. There were times that I was wondering. I'm like, this might be the end. He would just speed up on this car, then he would slow down, right? And you're kind of going through like all these little towns. So, if you can imagine just like a 2-lane road, but it's going to hit every kind of city as you're going through, because all the other roads are just kind of dirt roads shooting off to the side. and you've got buses and trucks and dump trucks moving about. Paul says sometimes just to get out of Yosh onto the two-lane road is sometimes 2 to 3 hours. And so the transportation over there, if you think traveling in Washington is challenging, it's nothing compared to some of the parts of Eastern Europe. And so we got to experience that on the bus. And so here we are on the bus. It's about a 4-hour drive, and so the bus was nice. It was it was pretty luxurious, but it doesn't make the turns really well. So it couldn't drive up to the camp. And so this is us just parked along the side of the road in in the city of Brazil. I call it Brazil, but it's called Brazil or something like that. Brazli or something like that. But so we just kind of parked, unloaded everything, and then kind of moved stuff up by cars, and then we just hiked up there, and it was only about a quarter-mile walk or so. But the place we stayed was really, really nice. And so as you go through all of these pictures, you'll see it reminded me of Wenatchee or kind of the Kashmir area. Just kind of some nice rolling hills, kind of pretty heavily forested. This is us making our flags, and so we were broken into, basically what they did is the flow of the week from Good Friday, Saturday we seen the town, Sunday we did the church thing, and then Monday through Friday we would have breakfast at 8:30 until about 9:15, and then from about 9:15, 9:30 until about 10:30, they had them just have some quiet time. So hey, we encourage you guys just to go and just spend some time with the Lord and just spend some time reading and working on your memory verses or whatnot. And then we would do teaching from 10:45 until about 12:15, and then we would break for lunch until about 1, and then from 1 to 5 you just had free time. And I spent most of my time taking a nap from like 1 to 4. That was just kind of my life. And then at 5 o'clock we had these teams that we broke into, right? So there's green team and red team and blue team and purple team, and then we would play games. And so as you see some of these slides, you'll see us in the afternoons doing things with hula hoops and whatnot. It was kind of team building times, to just get to know folks. And so the first thing we did was we built a flag. And I'm not sure, I think this was the Ebenezer team, because they're building like the rocks, like an Ebenezer with like the sun or something. But just so everybody, yeah, I think you guys did win the best flag. You didn't win the best flag? You had a really nice flag though. Our Seven Nations was really nice. Mine was easy. I just cut out a star and then like 3 red stripes, and I called it good for America. I wasn't going to do 50 stars. Who's got that kind of time? But just for clarity, when it was all said and done, green team, which was my team, won. You can pat me on the back later. Our reward, nothing. Like, what's the point of doing this then? I don't get to win anything. But so one of them was we built flags, and so they broke out all their crafts and stuff. This was the teaching area. So if you look off to the left, you can see that there's the screen that I was using for PowerPoint. There's kind of a pulpit by the guy standing there in blue, and so they would sit around in tables. And there's probably 50 to 60 people there. The interesting thing about it now is when it was first started, it was just geared towards the university students. So if you're in medical school, going to the medical school, and you could kind of speak at least broken English, there's not exactly a lot of Bible teaching churches in Yash or in Romania in general, because it's just so heavy Orthodox that when they hear about one, they kind of just go to it. And so that's how it started, but it's kind of morphed now, as it's been there now, about 15 years, that there's this interesting conglomeration of people now. And there was people at camp that don't go to church, that don't know the Lord, but they were invited by friends. You got people now that are going to church. One of the gentlemen we met, I wanted to call him San Francisco, but I think his name was Francesco. But he's probably in his mid-30s, and he's a pilot for Wizz Air. And he would fly. He would fly from Yash to London. So I'm like, how come I can't get a plane from Yash to Germany? Why do I got to go to Vienna? Nobody could give me an answer. So anyways, but he flew for Wizz Air. and married with a kid, and then now they're starting to have children, you know, because Paul's got 3, Case and his wife Excel, they've got 2 with 1 on the way. So they don't really know what to do with kids right now, and so they're kind of working through all of that. And so they're not just medical students now, there's actually people that are actually moving like from, we'll have some pictures, but they're moving from Paris over to Yash just to go to a church where they can hear the Bible taught. And so they don't have anything to do with the medical school. They've just maybe heard about it, or they were living there for a while and like, hey, we just love the church, we love the people, we love the Bible being taught, and so we just are going to move here and just stay here. And Francesco was one of them with his wife, and she's from Indonesia. Her name is, I think it's Julie. They've got 1 child. And so the dynamics of the church have definitely changed over the course of the last 15 years, which is really wonderful. So they've got some medical students there, but they've also got some older folks that are kind of planted and staying. It's Ken, there's a guy named Ken, his wife's name was Monica, and then it's Paul and Dorian, and then Case and his wife Excel, who's from the Caribbean as well. Case went through the ACTS program, but they're kind of the 3 families that are kind of, if you'd call them, staff there. And so Paul does most of the music and some of the teaching, and then him and Ken kind of switch back on the preaching, and Case just handles pretty much all the food and does children's church stuff and just kind of does other things around. But this is the area that we would teach in, and kind of behind and the back, kind of right, there was like a French group. And so it's about these 6 French girls that kind of just sat in a circle, and one of them would kind of translate for them. And so it kind of forces you to slow down a little bit. She like raised her hand, hey, can you stop talking so I can translate? And I'm like, oh, that's right. Not everybody speaks fluent English in here. And so that was kind of a fun thing to work through. And so that was kind of the teaching sessions. And so this is kind of just looking out our window. You're going to have a few of these because we had this suite. We had the honeymoon suite of the place. And it was absolutely preposterous. This room had to be, it was probably the size of this room. It's got a couch in it. It's got a bed. It even had a swing in it. And you're going to see a picture of that soon. But this is just looking out our window. This is looking towards the sunrise. They've got kind of some buildings there that they would keep their wood in. And there was kind of like this constant fire going. This is looking now towards the west. They had a swing. You'll see kind of a bonfire pit there. And so this is just kind of some pictures as we're just moving around the camp area. This is the wedding venue. We didn't use this at all, but if you were going to go there and have a wedding, it'd seat probably 200 to 300 people and kind of looked out over the hills and such. And so you got some pictures coming now of, this is just a walk up. If you were going to eat a meal there, it was definitely breakfast. Breakfast was over the top. Lunch, soup, sandwiches was okay, and dinner was okay, but breakfast, this is just breakfast. And so they've got all these sliced meats, they've got fruits, they've got all this wonderful kind of homemade bread. And so some of us just couldn't help ourselves but just taking pictures of all the breakfast food. And this was every single day, Monday through Friday. And so they've got these different kind of, whatever these things are, tomatoes or something, all this green stuff that I, of course, avoid. I move to the meats and cheeses and breads, but some folks like to have that kind of stuff for breakfast in the mornings. So I taught through the book of Galatians, in case I haven't said that already. And so we went through the whole book about, hour and a half, morning and evenings, and so we did that. And Paul was like, they were really blessed by the teaching, mainly because, number one, you actually had notes that they could follow, and number two, you actually finished the book. Those were the 2 things he said. I'm like, okay, well, then I guess I did all right. But the teaching went really well. The folks were really receptive to it, was really good, and we really enjoyed ourselves with that. This is kind of outside. They would have these games. This was probably one of the lamest games that we played. You just had to have a Frisbee and try to throw it into this target, and nobody did it. So let's just move on to a new game because this one's not any fun. And so we did that. But other than that, the games were pretty good. And now you're going to get some pictures of Pi's little favorite animal, which we can never really get too close to. And this is the donkey of the area. And so we would go hiking around and walk up the hills. And Paul said that if you want to go to Romania, go in the month of April because it's just the best weather. And it was. I mean, our weather was mid-70s the whole time. It didn't rain on us hardly at all. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And so the weather was perfect. And so here's Mr. Donkey again, just kind of hanging out. This is up on the hill now, looking down towards, so the retreat center is kind of off to the left there. And so the hills are, I mean, they just kind of remind me of the Wenatchee area. Okay, now, I just got a couple of quick pictures of this because I felt bad of taking pictures of guys, you know, in their swimsuits. But Paul's highlight of the trip was, Tom, you have to bring your swim shorts because we're going to go to a sauna. Now, there's another camp that's about a half hour away that's a little more rustic. It would almost be like going up to Camp Gormley or something. And so we were just fortunate because we got the, you know, the nice lodge one that we went to with the breakfast that was just off the hook. Don't worry, there's more pictures of the food coming up for all you food lovers. But he's like, but we have to go to this other camp we've gone to because they've got this sauna. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so there's probably about 15 of us. Now this sauna is probably, I guess if you cut the stage in half, it was about this big. And 3 levels of seats, and 15 guys packed into this thing. So already getting a little claustrophobic. Now, I looked at the thermometer in there, and it was set at 62 degrees Celsius. That's minimum. So you break out your little phones and do your little translations. It's about 145 degrees. That's standing room temperature. Now, of course, the higher you sit, the worse it is, because the hot air rises, of course, right? So us new guys are on the bottom. Well, then this crazy guy that runs the place, he walks over and he pours water on the rocks, and there was like eucalyptus. He'd have 3 rounds. 3 times we did this, 3 rounds every time. Just about died. And I'm like, well, maybe this will help my sinuses, just clean me out. I don't know if it did. But we'd go and he'd pour water on the rocks, and the place would heat up, and then watch the just, 62 and 63, 65, just keep moving. And so it probably got up to about 170 to 180. And then he takes this towel, and he just starts snapping it at you. Here we go. And then he'd do the helicopter. And the heat would just hit you in these waves, and you have to like slowly breathe because you feel like your lungs start getting on fire. Like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do this much longer. He's like, don't worry. And Paul Snyder was the first one, bailed out. He push a door open, and there's this bath of water that you jump in, 40 degrees. He's like, okay, now that you are about 180 degrees and your insides are starting to boil, then go dunk in this thing. Oh my goodness. The first time was an absolute shock to the system. And so we did that for probably, I don't know, about 2 hours. You go in, you do your 3 rounds, then you'd come out and you go sit in this homemade hot tub, and you can see kind of a pole in the back there. That's the fireplace. So he's actually burning wood, warming this thing up. And he ordered all this wood. Apparently he brought it all in from someplace else, put it all together. This guy was a complete nut job. And he just has this whole setup. And I'm like, dude, you're killing me. And so we did it once. I'm like, okay, that was great. Now what do we do? Well, we're doing it again. Do what? So we do it again, and then we do it a 3rd time. Like, oh my goodness. And so that was the spa experience, the sauna of fun. And so I've never been so hot in my life. They'd actually give you these hats. It was almost like this burlap sack hat that'd come down, and it would cover your ears. And I didn't wear it one time, and literally you thought the tops of your ears were on fire. They were so hot. I was like, I might actually damage my ears doing this. But we survived. And so that was the sauna. That was like on a Tuesday night or something like that. And so that was the sauna fun. And that was kind of one of the few things that we were able to do in the evenings. And so once again, here's your donkey. And then once again, here's some more food. This is their breakfast. It was just unhinged, man. The bread that's got like the seeds on top was by far my favorite. I'm not much of a bread guy. There you go. That's just the layout for breakfast. And you got, your fruits. You got, they must have had like 7 or 8 different type of cheeses if you're into that, and then the different breads and meats and such. This was the hula hoop games. It was fun watching my wife hop around like a frog, so I almost blew her knees out doing it, but we survived that one. And then this other one about throwing hula hoops. So these are just these team building exercises. But you see the weather's just gorgeous. It was probably mid-70s while we're up there, and good time. I think this was dodgeball. Yeah, I think you played dodgeball, didn't you? Yeah, she played dodgeball, and I was down. I got to actually go play some soccer one of the evenings with some guys, which was a lot of fun, in like this or this cow pasture. So we almost broke our ankles, and we never really played soccer where there's like a creek on one side and a barbed wire fence on the other side with gopher holes, and the grass was about a foot tall. So it was pretty challenging, but we had a good time. And so there I am, jumping through some hula hoop. This is one of my buddies I got to know here. This guy's name's Kim from South Korea. Really a sweet guy. And this is the road leading out. Oh, here, you're about to see the soccer field coming up here. So this was our walk back. But off to the left, I think it's off to the left. You can kind of see a soccer goal over there. The barbed wire fence, and in the distance there's a soccer goal, and that's where we played soccer. Yeah, and those are dandelions growing. Yeah, there's a soccer goal again. This is us as we're leaving. That was the blanket that I took that my wife stole and used all the time, but I got to carry it for her. I was like, did you bring a blanket? She's like, no, I'm just going to use yours. I'm like, okay. Probably one of my favorite pictures. This is, me and Paul just kind of hanging out one of the last days. But it was really a sweet, really nice resort. Had some nice swings out there, balconies for the folks. Where's the picture? I need the picture of my wife was sitting. I couldn't believe there was a swing in our room. Just wild. There you go. Breakfast was just unreal. Making me hungry looking at it. Oh yeah, look, even the platter got these little deer antlers coming off of it, all decorative. The last night that we were there, they had a big bonfire. The kids are out there. They're just kind of singing songs and burning some wood and such. And this is us just leaving. And so, just some pictures. Down the road. This is the city. I want to call it. Brazil's not the right word, but it's pretty close. Brazil or something of that nature. No, that was the name of the place. The name of the place was the city was Vama. Thank you. Yeah, and it's probably only about 10 kilometers, 5 to 6 miles from the Ukrainian border. And so Yash, we just kind of went northwest up, and we could have went to Ukraine, but then you got to deal with customs agents and all of that. We really didn't want to deal with all of that. But, a decent-sized city, and there was quite a few of these that we would pass through going up there. And these are just kind of some of the little houses along the way as we were kind of walking to get out of there. Almost all of them have metal roofs. Rains quite a bit. This is a guy's driveway. Yeah, and there's a creek running through it. So there's kind of another driveway with a little bridge, but we're like, what do you guys got going on over here? Oh, it's just a creek running through our driveway. I'm like, okay. That's an interesting way to get home every day, and this is in the nice, springtime. Some pictures come up are just pictures that we took on kind of our last day. This is Case's wife, Excel. She's from the Caribbean. I forget what island yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, maybe it's from southern Mexico. Yeah, Guadalupe. This is a girl named Emma. She had a tooth that just went really bad, so she had to go to the dentist while she was up there at camp. But she's really sweet. And this is Claire. She's from Tennessee. So she's over there helping out as well and just kind of loves the community. This is Leonard and his, I guess I would call it his fiancée, Blanca. And they're both from Paris. But she said probably the thing that really stuck with me the most, she was really appreciative of not just me, but of you guys, because she's like, these are the two are both from Paris. They went to Yash, got connected with the church, left, missed it so much, then they actually have moved back and are just getting planted in Yash because the church is there. And they were just really thankful, especially she was thankful that people like you provide money to the church in Yash, Romania, so that people like her could go to church and hear about Jesus. Like, isn't that just sweet? Like, she gets the connection. Like, you guys have planted the church, you guys support the church, you guys send money to help out with Paul and the church here so that people like us can just come to church and hear the gospel. And so it's just really this wonderful, sweet thing. And, Leonard, he really struggles with nightmares, he said. And so as you think about these guys, that you would pray for them. His name, he just said to pronounce it Leonard. It's different in French, Leonard or something, but Leonard and Blanca, and they're a couple, and they're going to be getting engaged. They don't have a wedding date or nothing set, but they were just kind of some of the folks that we connected with and had fun playing soccer with the guy and some other things. This is the Sunday evening before we're leaving. They did, with the kids all week long, in children's church, if you'd call it that, while I was teaching, and they learned about the fruits of the Spirit. I was notified on Friday night that I was going to be teaching on Sunday night, and so I was like, okay, and so, that's what we do as pastors, and so I went through Psalm 139, did some teaching, and so this is kind of the setup. There's our buddy Paul hanging out, and so I taught that Sunday night, and it went really well. And so then we were able to kind of cruise around the city a little bit, and these are just some of the things outside. I think this was outside of a hospital somewhere. I don't even know where this is at. Some university. There's a few universities there, and then also the medical school. I wanted to get pizza while I was there, and so we took a walk the Saturday before we left, and we found a pizza place. But what they do with pizza is they don't put sauce on it. They just give you bread, cheese, toppings, and they give you a bowl of red sauce on the side, and you can just put on as you like. Or ketchup. That's what I said. And so there we are, finally getting our pizza, and it was okay. And then as I'm sitting there eating pizza, being lazy, we look outside, and there's a 5K and a half marathon going on. And I'm like, okay, you guys are doing great running, and I'm going to be in here eating my pizza. And, of course, I had to take a picture of the guys in the duck outfits. And so there you go. They would kind of run up one way, and, of course, if you went to the left is where the palace is, and off to the right was kind of the Central University area, and so the kind of the strip down the middle, of course, is where they're all running. There's us in front of the palace again, and then a little farther down. And so these are just some pictures along there. There's that big Orthodox church that is very popular in Romania along that main walkway. And let's see. What is this? Oh, yeah. I don't even know where this is at. Oh, this is in a coffee shop. So Paya wants to try some coffee. And so we asked Paul, hey, where should we go in your town here to get coffee? Oh, you should go down to this coffee shop. I forget the name of it. I don't know. We'll call it Jolt. It's not right, but I'm going to call it Jolt. And so we go, beautiful. They've got blankets when you first walk in if you want to snuggle up in a blanket. They've got these swings. They've got this nice area. Coffee's terrible. And so we get back, hey, Paul, that place we went to, you told us about, oh, yeah, so-and-so, yeah, the coffee was terrible. Oh, yeah, I didn't really think about that. It's like, what do you mean I think about that? Well, we're just thinking about the atmosphere. What are you talking about? No, we want to have good coffee. The atmosphere is fine, but apparently they're all about the atmosphere and not so much about the coffee. And that was Paul's mindset, and so he's been exhorted on that. And then, of course, they got this little thing that says Josh on it. And I know it's spelled weird in how it's pronounced, but that's the way it is. But then you can see some of the buildings in the background there. They're just kind of very block and very square and just very communist, if you would. And that's down kind of by the palace area. And this is Paul's house out front, and that's us kind of waving by. There's Dorian, there's the girls. He's got a really nice house there. It's probably maybe 5 minutes. The way to get around in Yosh is you just download an app for a company called Bolt, and you pretty much it tells you where you're at, tells you where you want to go. It costs you about $2 to $3 to get around each time, and so you just punch it in, they're at your house within 5 minutes, and it's pretty much like the modern day kind of Uber or taxi system, but they're in Romania, and it was gold. And so it was just wonderful to be able to get around. And so we would just kind of shoot around, and he's close enough in town where people actually can come over to his house. He says, we could sell the place, but if we sold the place and we moved farther out, we might not have as many people be able to come over and have game nights and fellowship nights. And so they're in a really nice location. They actually have a yard, some grass. He's got a few chickens out there. They've got a ton of snails. He says they've just collected buckets and buckets of snails. But then, what do you do with the things? Because they just go through and destroy his garden. I don't know, I guess you just throw them to the neighbors. Well, it's kind of frowned upon, but I'm not sure what to tell you, but I don't really see snails too often, so I think they're kind of cool. But that's this place there. And this, of course, is once again kind of backtracking now, us just kind of making our flags. There's Paul was making a flag. I think they were like the red-toed ducks or something, and it was just lame. There you go. There's the room with the swing. Look at this place. Now, of course, it's a wedding venue. You know, probably like, well, when there you go. Yeah, the bridal suite. It was ridiculous. It was just ridiculous. The room was so big. Kind of felt guilty, but then, you know, like, okay, this is just how it is. So there's the bridal suite. And so then we hike on back down with our luggage, back out to the road, waiting for the bus by the railroad tracks, and then we would load that baby up and have the 4-hour drive back. There was a dog next door at the church. His name was Nero, and he was a sweet guy. So you can imagine Pia and Nero, they, of course, bonded once again. And so just church on Sunday. That was, I think, our, might have been even the Friday evening one, doing some reading again. Now I'm really bouncing around on you, but we're close to the end here. My poor wife trying to get close to the donkey. He wasn't really having too much of it. These little Shetland ponies were kind of ornery. There's kind of the newer modern building downtown there by the palace. And then the favorite thing coming up here, besides my wife, of course, was they have these gyros there that are like probably 18 inches long. Or I'm sorry, it's shawarma. Have this shawarma, and it was just so fantastic. Well, I have another picture of these guys hanging on the spa. There you go. Might be the same one. Gosh, that was so hot. Unreal. So this was my view. So this guy here in the front, let's see, I'm going to have to come back to it. Okay, so the guy on the front there, young kid, his name is Keelan, and you might see him in the fall because he's going to be finishing up the medical school, and then he's really planning on coming to to Acts in the fall. So August, September, coming here and just going through the Acts program all of next year. And so he's just a really sweet kid. He's from Trinidad and Tobago, and just easygoing, lighthearted, wonderful kid. And the person sitting next to him, oh boy, her name was Charlotte, Dan and Charlotte. And they work with CVM, which is who Patricia works with. Like, well, we sent this lady out. Her name was Patricia Lance. Oh, we know Patricia. We just saw her a little while ago at some conference. Like, oh, small world, right? And so he was a vet, but now he's in Yosh there helping out with the work just for the week while the camp was going on. Then off they're going to go. And so it was kind of nice hanging out with them. And they just got over a cold as well. So it was this evening where we were told by somebody in the church, oh, by the way, we think we might have COVID. So after my first round of getting sick, I believe then we got some type of Romanian COVID as we were leaving. And we both got to have that, and that was a good time. And so that was the second round. I think I dealt with 3 rounds of it, and it was just a wonderful time. Here's our friends. The guy's name in the middle there, his name is Lord, L-O-R-D. Can you imagine naming your kid Lord? Hey, Lord. But then there's Leonard and his fiancee Blanca there, and just really sweet people. Lord's got a little Pentecostalism in him, but he's just a real sweet guy. Some of the guys got to play some soccer with. This is a Sunday evening, so this is the meal that they have. And half these people we didn't really know because they didn't go to camp, but they come to the church. There was actually a couple that came that it was their first time visiting. Gosh, I forget their names. But they visited for the first time. They just sat at our table, so we got to know them. And as they were leaving, we're like, so, where do you guys live? Like, oh, we go down to the train station, and we hop on a train, and we have an hour-and-a-half ride back to our house. So these folks took an hour-and-a-half train ride to come to church, and I don't even know, I think they just maybe found it online or something. Oh, I almost had the guy's name. But it was him and his wife, and they had a daughter with them, and then they catch a train and go all the way back. And I'm thinking, man, we have it just made. I've got like a 5 to 10 minute drive to get to church. Everybody speaks English in here. We all know the same customs. Like, oh, how wonderful it is. And we have Costco. And we got Fred Meyer. The grocery stores over there are pretty much like Ray's Thriftway. That's what you have. And like, oh, I even tried to order something on Amazon. Did you guys know that Amazon doesn't work in Europe? I was like, well, I'm not sure what's going on with Amazon. They got to get their act together. Like, huh? I guess I'm kind of spoiled over here in America. And so, yeah, it was really just sweet to meet these guys, and they were really blessed by the service as well. And so this is the meal that they would have before church. Meal at 5, church at 6, and then they eat again kind of around 8. And then the next morning we got up at 2:30, and we got to the airport at 3 o'clock. And there's actually a place at the airport, and it's all painted this right here. Kiss and ride. You pull up, you give the person you're with a kiss, and you get out of the way and ride off into the distance. So pretty much drop and go. And so Paul dropped us off at 3 in the morning, and then we got back, and of course our first stop was Chick-fil-A. Got to get ourselves some real food, besides the shawarma and the breakfast, of course. And then, of course, the last slide is we run into this guy. All is well back on the homestead, for the most part. So the Romania trip was really good. It was really fruitful in the sense of the teaching seemed to go really well. It was great to make some connections. This one guy, Kim, I just couldn't get rid of, the South Korean guy. And he was the only person in his family that knows Jesus. He had somebody invited him to a church when he was, I think he's 19. Is there a slide up right now? Okay, well, let's get rid of that. Yeah, it's probably going to start over. But he might be 20 now, because in South Korea, when you graduate, you go serve in the military for a year and a half. And so he graduated, went in the military and served. A friend invited him, or a distant relative, and he went to church and just received Christ. And so he's the only believer in his family. And then he decided that he wanted to go see where Jesus walked. So he then went to Jerusalem. And then from Jerusalem, he decided he wanted to go to America and see big stuff of creation. So then he went and saw Niagara Falls, and then went to the Grand Canyon. And he did this for about a 5-month trip. It was about a 5-month trip to go to Jerusalem and some other areas, into Europe, and then over here to America, and did that for a little bit. And so he's the one guy I kind of stay in contact with on WhatsApp. And so I've been talking to him, and then Francesco, my friend San Francisco, the pilot, stay in contact with him, and it was just really fruitful in those ways. It was just a real struggle when it comes to staying healthy, but this too shall pass, as Joel told me this morning. So that was a trip, guys. You guys have any questions, or just anything you're inquiring about the trip? Yeah. Joe, that's a good question. I think they probably teach in English. You know, most people in Europe speak about 4 languages, but they teach mostly in English and Romanian. Yeah, most of the people there speak English, especially as they're coming from, a lot of folks are coming from Europe, from England, or from France mostly, we noticed, or they're coming from like the Indonesia area, or some parts of Africa. Like some of these guys were from, I want to say it was Ghana, but they all speak English pretty well. And so I'm thinking they probably speak English and teach English, and they probably are also doing some Romanian, though not everybody probably knows Romanian. That's coming from, Pakistan or India or something like that. But they do speak English pretty well. Yeah. And there's a lot of French people coming, so maybe they do French as well, but I don't know. Can't really probably answer that question too well. Yeah. What else? No, that's what was interesting. And I'm not sure how they heard about it, because I kind of went through and got rid of probably a third of my PowerPoint slides, because Paul's like, these folks don't all speak real good English, and maybe half the people are from the church, and the other half are just friends that have come. And so some people don't even know who the Lord is at the camp. And so as I was teaching, kind of like, oh, okay, the way this guy's responding, you can kind of tell maybe he doesn't know the Lord right now. And so I think they just put something up at the school to let people know, but then just friends that invite them, that they don't really have anywhere to go because it's only a week long. When summer hits, school ends, around July, they'll all go back to their homes, whether it's Morocco or Ghana or Indonesia or something, and they're gone for summer. Then they'll come back in the fall. But when they have Easter break, there's really nowhere to go. Like, hey, if you want, you can go to this camp that's it'll feed you, we'll house you, we'll go up, we'll travel up to Vama, and you can go hang out. It's only going to cost you about $200, and it's pretty inviting to a lot of them. And so this was the largest camp they had, and there was probably, 60 to 70 of us that were there. So it's kind of a wide range of people. I'd say, half of them were probably under 30, and the other half are probably over. Yeah. So that was interesting dynamics. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was good. But they were in all the sessions. Like all the Galatian sessions, all the teachings and stuff. Yeah. The sauna. Yeah, the ladies didn't go to sauna. Yep. Everybody was there for all the sessions. Monica took the 5 or 6 small kids off somewhere else during the teaching time. But then everybody was together for it all. Yeah, so that was good. The games and everything. Yeah. All right. Definitely not going back. Not for a while. No. Not really. He doesn't really have doesn't really see a calling to go to Burundi at all. That's where Dorian's from. And they've gone to visit, but he's always playing with the idea of moving back here. But at the same time, he's definitely needed over there. But it's challenging because it's just different. It's nice having a car to get around. The city's really tight. They definitely didn't think about roads 500 years ago and how wide they were going to need to be. And I could honestly tell you, after taking these little Bolt cars, there's nothing bigger than probably Jamie's car over there for the most part. They're kind of smaller. They're kind of 4 doors. Didn't see maybe 1 or 2 trucks that people are driving around in because everything's so tight. But I couldn't tell you how to get back to Paul's house if the guy wouldn't have took us, because the roads are just, it seems like they take a different way each time. I don't know if they do it on purpose just to keep you confused or what. But we were going to church. I'm like, okay, I know you're supposed to take a left here and hit this road. And the guy's like, nope. He takes a right and takes us like through downtown. Like, I guess this works, but it's just very different in that way. And so the language thing is a little challenging, but it's not bad. But just lifestyle is just very different, from shopping to getting around to leisurely activities, things of that nature. Can be challenging. So I could see Paul's desire maybe to come home, but at the same time, it's definitely well used there with the music ministry and discipleship, and then he's doing teaching every other week. But not really. No. My kids are all born in Romania, so he's just he's pretty well planted there now. Now they actually have a house, right, that he's taking care of and working on and all of that. As much as we like for him to come home. Yeah, okay. Anything else here? Yeah, kid? That's right. No, not that we really saw. They're just really larger, older Orthodox churches. You're talking, 19 out of 20 people are Romanian Orthodox. And so when Good Friday hit, you could hear bells going off and different calls to prayer and people kind of going to them. And even on Sunday morning, kind of the same deal. And they're really old. They take up a little bit of space. They've got kind of garden areas outside as well, big fences and stuff around, because they're, at least 500 years old or so. And there's kind of a tourist attraction as well. But we didn't really see any kind of smaller churches or anything of that nature, which I think is why some people are taking an hour-and-a-half train ride just to come, over there to Ecclesia International, just to maybe hear something in English and just hear a Bible read and a Bible taught. yeah, kind of easy to take for granted what we have here and accessibility to the scriptures and such. Yeah. All right. All right, that's Romania. Yeah, so, yeah, sweet. Well, let's pray. God, Lord, I just thank you, Lord. It's interesting to just kind of travel a little bit, and they're really not doing much different there than that we're doing here. That they're going to work and taking care of their family and just doing church life together and inviting friends over to their houses, inviting friends to church, and all of that. And so, God, that you'd help us to appreciate the fact that wherever we're at, that we are doing missionary work. And it doesn't have to look anything kind of out of the ordinary. We just go about our lives and we just walk with you and we just serve you. And as we do those things, that you'd bless us. And I thank you for these folks here that have helped to provide just the funding to get there. And I just appreciate their prayers and just be able to take care of everything while we're gone and just kind of dealing with life and some illnesses, and to appreciate their steadfastness with you. And God, that you'd bless them for that. And so bless the work in Romania and Ecclesia with Paul and the family and Ken and his family and Case and Excel and the folks that we met. And God, that you just encourage them, that you'd build them up, that they would just continue along to minister to these folks that are able to just come in a place like Romania, and some coming from Buddhist families or Muslim families or whatnot, and they can come and they've got some freedom because they're away from their families to be able to hear the gospel and to respond to the gospel. And as they do, that they would flourish and then go back home and be able to spread the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ in their hometown. And so, God, we thank you for this morning. Thank you for this time. Bless our afternoon as only you can. In Jesus' name, amen.